What up, muchachos? Two plays for Saturday night's UFC 261. The first will be Chris Weidman over Uriah Hall at -110. Let's start off with a cool little story from Chris Weidman's coach, Ray Longo, about the first fight between these two.
And on the regional circuit, Uriah Hall was killing it, right? So he was considered the guy for sure. And I'll tell you, it was so bad that Chris had a girl, some girl he knew from Baldwin was training with Uriah, and she actually called him and said, please, whatever you do, don't take this fight. Don't do it.
Right.
But, classic Weidman at that time, I think he was just unstoppable. Nobody really had any idea. And I think Uriah Hall found out, the hard way. I mean, he got taken down. He couldn't move. First, he got knocked down by a punch, which I was happy about, because he stood up with him. And then when he knocked him down, it was just bad.
This story in a lot of ways is a microcosm of Uriah Hall's MMA career. Heralded as the future king of the UFC's middleweight division, owner of the most devastating KO ever on the show The Ultimate Fighter, all the skills and talent in the world, but weak mentally. I would never trust Uriah Hall with my money. This is a guy that'll quit in there. This is a guy that crumbles under pressure and expectations. He's never been able to string together more than 3 wins in a row in his UFC career. You can only get away with pure talent for so long. Eventually, you're going to run into someone that may not be as talented, but will break you mentally. Derek Brunson broke Uriah Hall, walked him down with zero respect for his power, and KO'd him in the first round. Hall had an obvious speed advantage over Paulo Costa, and he was busting him up with his jab. But Costa, like Brunson, relentlessly walked Hall down until Hall folded under the pressure. Weidman isn't going to fold in there. His chin let him down versus Jacare. He was clearly on his way to winning that fight before getting KO'd with a little over 2 minutes to go in that fight. Overconfidence was his problem when he lost the belt to Luke Rockhold. He was in control of that fight until he foolishly goes for a spinning back kick. That gives Rockhold an opportunity to take it to the ground where he takes over the fight. No shame in losing to Yoel Romero or Gegard Mousasi, easily the best middleweight outside the UFC, who also dominated Uriah Hall in both of their fights. But Mousasi did get caught with a knee from Hall in the first fight after kicking Uriah's ass for about 5 minutes. That's Uriah Hall's best chance here, catching Weidman with something and knocking him out. He has 1 unanimous decision victory in his career. This goes back to my point about his mental weakness. He just can't put it together for 15 minutes. 5 unanimous decision victories for Weidman in his career, who's just as capable as Uriah Hall is scoring a KO. He already beat him by TKO in their first fight, and I also think he could sub him. Hall has never been subbed in his career, but Weidman is a high-level jiu-jitsu player. He was the first person to ever submit Kelvin Gastelum, who himself is a black belt in BJJ. Uriah Hall is just a purple belt, so the possibility of the sub for Weidman is there as well. Weidman can win in a multitude of ways. Hall's only route to victory is by KO, and Weidman is definitely the mentally tougher fighter of the two. So give me Chris Weidman -110 over Uriah Hall. Second and final play, Jimmy Crute versus Anthony Smith over 2.5 rounds +105. A bread and butter play for us this past year. Not the main event, but still a fight between 2 ranked guys in the light heavyweight divisions. Overs hit more than unders. I've referenced the study done on the UFC fights that proves this. You can look it up yourself. Unders are more likely when there's a mismatch, and mismatches are less likely as you move down the card towards the main event. Dog price is because of Jimmy Crute. 4 straight fights, none have made it past the first round, but this is by far Jimmy Crute's toughest test, not necessarily from a skill perspective, but from an experience perspective for sure. Anthony Smith is a guy with 50 professional MMA fights. Started in the UFC, left, went to Bellator, went here, went there, got better, came back. During his second stint in the UFC, he's had 14 fights, only been stopped in under 2.5 rounds once during that stretch. This is not an easy guy to put away. There's definitely some value on Smith as an underdog here as well, especially since one of those first round finishes in Crute's 4 most recent fights was a submission loss for him. The issue is Jimmy Crute is a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt himself and has been training in the discipline since he was 11 years old. We see guys usually from a wrestling or a judo background repeatedly get caught in submission, sometimes by making the exact same mistake over and over. That's not the case here with Crute, who has an extensive background in BJJ. You would think he'd learn from that mistake, and again, He's been doing jiu-jitsu his entire life. It's there. It's not something he's learning from the beginning. So I think he's going to be a lot more cautious this time around. We saw him go pretty much the full 3 rounds with Paul Craig, and he was still full of energy, so gassing out isn't a concern for Crute. It's definitely not a concern for Smith. It's very common for guys while they're making their way up the rankings to have a lot of early stoppage victories, but once they get to that upper echelon, we start to see much more competitive matches. Anthony Smith is 8-4 in his 12 most recent fights. Those 4 losses: Thiago Santos, number 4 light heavyweight in the world; John Jones, light heavyweight GOAT; Glover Teixeira, number 1 contender; Alexander Rakic, number 2 contender. Like I said before, Anthony Smith money line is a good play as well. My issue is he was losing in a lot of those fights where he got the submission victory. He was for sure about to lose a decision to Volkan Ozdemir, and he'd lost 2 of the first 3 rounds versus Alexander Gustafsson, and those guys don't have the jiu-jitsu background of a Jimmy Crute. If Crute is up 2 rounds going into the 3rd and they're both sweaty, I just find it hard to imagine Smith pulling off a submission. So I'll stick with the over here. This one should be a competitive back and forth battle between a young and up-and-comer Jimmy Crute and the wily veteran Anthony Lionheart Smith. Thanks for watching. Best of luck if you're tailing. Have a great fucking day.